In Nova Scotia's Annapolis Valley, an entire backwoods clan is tried and convicted of incest. They're sent to jail. The children are taken away. The cost, millions of dollars and a broken family.
Hello everyone, I'm Dawn. Thank you for visiting with me today. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel. We do all kinds of things here on the cutting board. We do lots of true crime content. We do SFX makeup, DIY projects, food content, hauls, vlogs, and my favorite, Disney content. I have a lot of interest and I want to share them with you. This is going to be a true crime video. In this video, we're going to discuss something that was very distressing for me to research. It's, in my mind, very sick and twisted. We're going to talk about the Goler Clan. The Golers are a family that lived in Nova Scotia's South Mountain in Canada, and they lived on Deep Hollow Drive in White Rock. And they were a severely impoverished family that is extremely incestuous and have engaged in inbreeding for generations, like something like 5 generations at least, dating back to the 1860s. Now, for those who don't know, inbreeding is reproducing offspring from mating living organisms that are closely genetically related, and it's bad. It can be really bad. Inbreeding results in homogeneity, that's a particular gene. I'm sorry about that word. I couldn't pronounce it. That has identical alleles, and in both homologous chromosomes. This is dangerous. It's very dangerous to life forms, and it can cause genetic disorders, autosomal recessive disorders, Down syndrome, other intellectual disabilities, reduced fertility, neurodegenerative disease such as Huntington's, increased risk of heart disease, higher risk of immune disorders, physical defects, and inbreeding among impoverished communities such as the Goler Clan results in those risks being even more amplified due to minimal or no pre- and postnatal care and minimal to no medical care overall. South Mountain became famous in the 1980s due to the Goler Clan. I'm sorry, I have an itch. I'm not picking my nose. The Golers were extremely poor and would often go without food. Only what they could catch. So they kind of lived off the fat of the land. They lived in a rundown shack-like house. They were isolated from the town, and they were viewed negatively by residents of the nearby towns. They had little to no formal education, and for the most part, they didn't work. Now, Charles and Stella Goler is the matriarch and patriarch of the family at the point I am beginning to cover. While all the crimes that I will discuss likely happened generation to generation for at least 5 generations, like I said earlier. But we will cover this era because this is the period when the Goler family, when the Goler clans, when their secrets are uncovered. And I tried to find out more about Charles and Stella. Really couldn't find out much about them. I didn't know if they were cousins, brother and sister. I didn't know if they were blood related. I don't know. But their children were all affected by inbreeding, so they probably were blood related. The Golers engaged in, this incestuous relationship, these incestuous relationships for generations, like I said, and it extended to like every relational combination, brothers and sisters, fathers and daughters, grandfathers and granddaughters, nieces, nephews, aunts, uncles. Charles and Stella's children were William, Cranswick, Cecil, Henry, Stella, Marjorie, Josephine, and Mary. And all of them suffered from mental and physical disabilities. And they all lived in this one house together, along with many, many, many other relatives, and including children. And the children, they did the majority of the chores. They were made to do all the work. As near as I can tell, the adults didn't do anything. Now, the home had no running water. They slept on old, filthy mattresses. There was no toilet. There was a hole in the floor. There was no bathtub or shower. The walls were rotting away. Some walls were just completely gone. William Goler and his siblings, they were all prone to violent outbursts, probably part of that inbreeding. And William, who was born in 1945, he wanted to be the leader of the Goler family. And he wanted to be the patriarchal figure, the one in charge. And in the 1970s, William decides he wants to settle down. So he chooses someone who is actually not blood related to him. Amazing. And he chose 16-year-old Hazel. And Hazel was forced to be in this relationship with William. She was from a nearby family, but she was forced to live with him. Particularly in the 70s, this community was very male-dominated, and Hazel immediately started having children. Sandra, Donna, and Lisa, 3 girls. And William, he was the most intelligent of all his siblings, which really, that's not saying much, hence the air quotes. He was just a gifted manipulator. And, you know, you don't have to be book smart for that. You can be a good manipulator and not be book smart. And William was a huge bully. He was a huge bully, and his mom, Stella, always backed him up. That was her boy. She backed him up 100%. And once William was in charge, he made some changes. First, he made all of the adults go and get low-paying jobs, and none of them had ever worked before, but he would make them get low-paying jobs. I'm sorry, my camera stopped. But he would go make them get low-paying jobs, and he would take their wages that they earned. Every time they got paid, he would take them. He managed all the money. Now, he didn't get a job. Oh, no. He just collected disability benefits and made his adult family members all work. They all worked. I don't know what kinds of jobs they did exactly, but there was general labor probably. But he made every decision for everyone. He was extremely violent to everyone, including and especially his children. At this point, there's about 14 children living among the clan. Oh, William had a dog that he named Shiva that he trained to be a very aggressive attack dog. And no doubt that he abused the dog as well. And he would threaten the children with the dog. And sometimes he would even release the dog to attack. And the dog would attack, causing serious injuries to children. There was no hygiene. I'm getting itchy just talking about it. There must have been a lot of yeast infections. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny, but that's always a thing of mine I'm worried about if I get too dirty. I know it's probably, like, stupid, but I do. I'm like, yeast infection. But the children, they were constantly abused by all of the adults, not just William. And the adults weren't ashamed. They never tried to hide it. They never tried to cover the children's bruises or anything. And these children weren't just hit. They were tortured mentally and physically. And they were constantly traumatized and re-traumatized and terrorized. But William actually sent his girls to school, which is enraging to me, and let me tell you why. Because the school sees the bruises. They see the bruises and injuries, but no one helps these girls. No one helps them. You know, they're just the smelly, gross, weird Goler children. Nobody wants to help them. Nobody wants to get involved. The teachers did pay for their lunches at school, so they did get food. They didn't get much food at home, but they did at least get food when they went to school. William, he even used food as a form of punishment. On top of all of this physical abuse, they suffered SA from the whole family, from every adult in the family and from other children. William SAs the children, plus all of the other children in the Goler clan, boys and girls. Charles, William's father, was having a sexual relationship with 2 of his daughters. And the adults didn't see a thing wrong with it. They didn't see a thing wrong with what they were doing. The younger women who got pregnant by their fathers, brothers, whatever, they're forced to give up their babies to their moms to be raised as their sibling. William's middle child, Donna, says that she was approximately 5 years old when it first happened to her. And she remembers this. She remembers this because it was right after she graduated from kindergarten. It was right after she graduated from kindergarten, and she was essayed almost every single day by adult relatives. Every single day. And he was also pimping them out, not just his daughters, but all the children, to strangers for cigarettes and beer. And everything you can think of, they did to these children. Any sick thing you can think of, they did to these children. They even forced the children into what I see as orgies. The adult women were complicit. They even helped by holding the kids down. Now, I found no information about them being actively involved in the act, but I mean, they held the children down. And, they did nothing at all to help these children. Nothing to help them. Now, Cecil, one of William's brothers, he was paralyzed from the waist down, so he couldn't do anything, but he would watch and make animal sounds while watching the children get essayed. They would also make the children essay each other. Oh, and when William let strangers in so he could pimp out the kids, the other children were forced to watch. They were forced to watch this. And if the children put up a fight at all, they were beaten severely, and then it would still happen. He would have games for the children, and whatever kid won, they wouldn't get R-worded for a whole day. Wow. He also pitted the children against each other, or tried to. That's a method to isolate the children. He not only wanted to isolate them from society, but isolate them from each other. Then William meets Wanda. And remember, he's married to Hazel. But Wanda Whiston, nasty woman, she comes along. And Wanda was around 19, 20 when she meets William. While Hazel was in the hospital for a few days. She was getting a hysterectomy, I believe. And William moves Wanda in, and she's a nightmare as well. She was probably the worst one. She was essayed her entire life, so maybe she knows no other way. But I don't care. You know how it made you feel? Why? Why would you do it to innocent children after you know how it feels yourself? But William hired Wanda as a nanny. And guess what? William and Wanda, they start a sexual relationship. No shock there, right? And no one saw that coming. But she never actually did any nannying. She just kind of had sex with William. And she essayed all the children too. She essayed all of them. Not just William's kids, but all of the children. Of course, when Hazel, gets home from the hospital, she's not happy about this. She doesn't like this arrangement at all. But, William makes the rules, and he's like, what I say goes. And honestly, I don't feel bad for Hazel. I really don't. She never lifted a finger to save her children from this vicious animal and his breed of monsters. Hazel would get beatings too, but still, help your kids. But, Hazel eventually, she just left. She abandoned her kids, and, she wanted her daughters to come, to come live with her, but when it went to court, the judge awarded custody to William. And the children never saw their mom ever again after that. So Wanda replaced William's mother as the matriarch, and Stella as the matriarch of the Goler Clan. Wanda would actively intimidate all the children in the family and manipulate them. She was absolutely evil. She was evil. And William would, he'd beat up the children on her command. And she also essayed all the children. I think I mentioned that all earlier. All the girls, all the boys, all of them. And just imagine what this woman would have these children do. It's anything you can imagine she'd have them do. And what she would do to the children. That's what she did. Anything you could imagine, she did. Whatever you imagine. And she'd make all the other children watch too. Like she got off on it. And the youngest child she essayed was 3. And she did this every day to multiple children. Every single day. There is a book called On South Mountain, The Dark Secrets of the Goler Clan by David Cruz and Allison Griffiths. And it's very difficult to find, but the assaults are very graphically described in the book. And, again, it's not an easy book to find, but it does exist. I saw it on Amazon, but it was like $100, and I'm like, no, I don't know about that. Wanda also had the family members watch what she would do to the children, William would watch her do these things to his own children, and he didn't care. These children were penetrated by these adults in all of their orifices with multiple items. Anything that could potentially be used, they used for that. Sticks, toys, anything. And, the children that were able to, they told who they thought were trusted adults. They tried to tell, but it was the Goler Clan, so no one cared. No one cared enough to get involved. I guess it just wasn't worth the trouble to them. So no one wanted to tangle with the dirty, low-class Goler Clan. That's not my words. That was in the one of the articles I read. So Sandra Williams, oldest, she had tried to run away twice on 2 occasions, and the police brought her back both times. And the police didn't listen to her abuse claim. She tried to tell them, but they didn't listen. It's outrageous. And she was severely beaten both times she was brought back. Donna, his second child, tried to tell a teacher, but this stupid teacher called William, I guess he had a phone, and told him what Donna was accusing him of. And she got severely beaten for that. Eventually, in 1984, Sarah broke down at school and told a teacher. I mean, someone has to listen. Someone has to care. I don't know. I think a lot of children would have given up at this point. But she broke down, and I think the catalyst for this breakdown may have been that William now wants Sandra to start having some children by him. And, that was her absolute tipping point. That she even knew that was wrong after living in those conditions, to me, is amazing. But finally, this teacher did something. And I think she was new to the community and didn't really know of the Goler Clan. But she called social services, and after William found out that Sandra was talking and she hadn't been home, and it was a couple days, he threatened the other children. And not just his daughters, but all the kids. If they say anything to anybody, they would be in big trouble. They would be very sorry. Donna promised she wouldn't say anything to anyone, mainly because she wanted to protect her little sister, and she knew she had to protect the little Lisa. But the police, they were able to gain Donna's trust, and they got her to tell them everything. And the details of her story corroborated everything in Sandra's story. So the police went into the mountain and arrested William. And he had a very arrogant air about him. He thought that he was smarter than the police. He thought he was smarter than everybody. He basically told the police it was all a lie. But what he didn't realize is that Donna corroborated everything that Sandra said. They were interviewed separately. And most of the children were all removed from the Goler house. And remember, I said most, because for some reason, one of the children is left behind. And we will get to that briefly. So 15 adults in the clan were arrested, which included that nasty Wanda. They all had very flippant attitudes. They pretty much admitted to everything, and they thought it was humorous. They thought it was entertaining. They thought they were in the right. They didn't see anything wrong with what they did. Zero regrets. And they accused the children of, wanting it, seducing them, starting it, saying the children were promiscuous. Except that probably wasn't the word they used, because that's a pretty advanced word.
St. Clair Jodrey was accused of having sex with a 12-year-old girl. This is the closest he ever came to admitting it.
I didn't know at the time what to think. How can you think when she comes on to you? Ain't much you can do, Eddie. Somebody comes on to you, ain't much a person can do. After a while, you gotta give up or do something.
Several family members, didn't fully understand the seriousness of their actions, didn't understand what incest was. In an interview, a 57-year-old family member, he was genuinely confused. He was genuinely confused when interviewed by a Canadian news station.
Well, I realized a little bit, but I don't know if it's anything, I don't know too much to learn, because I didn't do anything to learn it. I just live day by day like I always did. That's all I done. I never done anything wrong or anything.
Is this going to make any change in your life, having gone to prison?
Well, I remembered and all that, what I done. But I don't know to go or can't learn much more than you learn, because I didn't do anything to learn by.
He said he had no idea what he had done wrong, that he was simply living the way he always had. One family member, again, didn't even know the word incest. When asked about it by an interviewer, he parroted the word back, insects.
Do you know what the word incest means?
Insects?
Incest.
No.
Do you know that it's wrong having sex with children, with young people?
Well, sure is wrong. It's wrong. And a man had any guts way, he wouldn't ever do it.
Part of me wonders if it was a partial act, hoping for sympathy, but I don't know if I believe that these people had that kind of thought process, that kind of guile. Defense lawyers faced many, many challenges due to the fact that these people all thought what they did was okay, and that they all made very damning, self-incriminating remarks, to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. So all adults were released on bail, all of them. because they weren't considered threats to society. But 14-year-old Doug was the child that was left by the police. He was the one left behind. And I have no idea why he wasn't taken from the home, have no idea why he wasn't protected. But when these filthy scumbags, these disgusting pieces of garbage were released, they all had a heyday on Doug. They essayed him continuously, viciously, and without mercy. And while the Goler Clan were out on bail, a documentary was filmed at their homestead in the mountain. And it's honestly so disturbing. Stella accused Sandra of ruining their family.
What did the RCMP do to this family?
He broke my family all to pieces. Them cops did. In New Minor. He come here and got them boys when they wasn't guilty.
Poor idiot. The Goler Clan, they were finally charged with over 170 counts, of crimes related to SA. Now, of course, William pleaded not guilty and went to court, and he was saved by the Lord and was carrying a Bible that he couldn't read, and allegedly he had been bathed in the blood of the Lord, and he's saved by our Lord and Savior. I guess he thought that would work, that would help in some way.
Willie, the prosecution has suggested that this whole interest in religion and whatnot, that it's some kind of a con game. How do you respond to that?
Jesus is not a con. It's not a con game. Jesus is our Savior. Jesus is up above. I got baptized to believe in the Lord and to believe in this holy book. It's not a con game. There's a whole bunch that's baptized.
His children had to testify, and he tried to intimidate them, but as scared as he made them feel, they gave their testimonies. The jury found him guilty. Now the sentences, they're so ridiculous. Like in Florida, they would get multiple life sentences thanks to Governor DeSantis. I know not everyone's a fan, but he's trying to be tough on sex crimes against children, so that's something good. But let's talk about these pathetic sentences. William Goler got 7 years, and that was the most severe sentence. That was the longest sentence. Wanda got 4 years. Cranswick got 5.5 years. Henry got 3 years. Roy got 1 piddly year. The rest of the adults involved got 1 to 3 years. And the Johns that they'd sell the children to for cigarettes and beer, they all got less than a year. The ones that they were able to get anyway. It's doubted that everyone involved was caught. And after they all got out, they went back to the Goler compound, the Goler shack. It was several shacks. The 3 sisters, William's daughters were all separated because there was no foster family that could take all 3 girls in. So they drifted apart, which is so sad, but at least they're safe now. Donna grew up to be an activist for stricter laws and stronger protection for children victims. About a year after the publication of the book On South Mountain, Donna began a fight to revise the criminal code, saying that it failed to protect children of these convicted offenders. There's no record of any of the other victims, and I think that's a good thing. So maybe they have gone on to live in peace. Hopefully they're living happily and, in peace. But sadly, and being realistic, that may not be the case, but hopefully they are. William Goler was arrested again for CSA, but I could not find any information about that at all, and I tried. the last I read about William Goler is that he currently lives in a nursing home, but I was not able to, confirm that. That is just the last thing I read about him. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. That's all for this story, and I will talk to everyone later. Bye.